Hi, Johnny Red here. I just had to do a video on the media firestorm around Trump's tweet on the farm murders in South Africa. The major news networks were really triggered by Trump's tweet. All he said was that he was going to have Pompeo look into it, citing land expropriation and large-scale killing of farmers. And with the exception of Fox News, all the major networks were united with one voice, condemning Trump as ignorant, racist, and hateful. Here's his tweet. Here, take a look at the top headlines found in a YouTube search with the keywords Trump, South Africa. First you have CNN, then MSNBC, then VOA, Fox, CBS, 2 from the Washington Post, 1 from Time, 1 from Channels TV, and several from SABC, which is the official government South African news outlet. Of these, only Fox approaches neutrality. Virtually all the other mainstream sources are saying essentially the same thing, that Trump is echoing white nationalist talking points, that he's misinformed, that his claim of large-scale killings of white farmers is wrong. They cite a single source that says murders are down but still high. They don't say how high, as if the fact that they are down means that this isn't a problem. How stupid do they think their audience is? And it's not even true that they are down. In a few minutes I'll show you some sources from real people on the ground in South Africa that refute the claim that murders are not a serious problem and that they are ridiculously high and are in fact increasing, not decreasing. So once again, all the authoritative sources got it wrong.
There it was, a tweet from left field. I've asked Secretary of State Pompeo to closely study the South Africa land and farm seizures and expropriations and the large-scale killing of farmers. The tweet was apparently spurred by a story on the president's favorite channel.
Note the mocking, incredulous tone of voice. From left field, and that he apparently got his info from his favorite channel, Fox News, as if that could not possibly be credible. I'll show more of the Fox clip in a moment. It actually backs up Trump's claims with actual video of ANC leaders openly talking about murdering white farmers. Then they give a brief clip of Tucker Carlson, who says the South African government has begun seizing land without compensation based on skin color. The CNN announcer then says that they are debating whether to do this and justifying it in advance, saying that it's reparations for apartheid. Well, in actuality, it has already begun, even though it isn't even legal yet. Here's a clip from express.co.uk.
President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has begun, and you may have seen this in the press, seizing land from his own citizens without compensation because they are the wrong skin color.
It's true the South African government is in a fierce debate over politics ahead of next year's elections. Debate on whether to allow some white-owned farms to be seized and handed to black citizens, reparation for years of apartheid.
So Ramaphosa says that the issue will be debated in public and in Parliament. There is no doubt, however, that it will soon be the law of the land. The official SABC news channel says as much, and as you have seen, the seizures have already begun, even before it's legal.
Our top story this evening, land expropriation without compensation is here to stay, and those who fear the proposed policy must not panic. Well, that's the assurance from President Cyril Ramaphosa.
South Africa's president says the issue will be debated by the public and in Parliament. But is large-scale killing of farmers underway? Not according to a study last year from a large South African farmers group, which found while violence in rural parts of the country remains high, attacks on farmers have actually been declining. Trump's tweet was based on false information, government officials quickly said, calling them hysterical comments. Still, the false notion of white South African farmers under genocidal fire is a popular trope with white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and conspiracy theorists, some of whom have plenty to like in President Trump. His brutal comments about some African countries, his attacks on protesting football players, and more, even as he insists he's no racist.
So to be clear, as far as we can find, the president has never before directly tweeted about any issues in Africa, and now that he has chosen to do so, he has forwarded a piece of fake news about the alleged plight of white people living there.
So Trump doesn't tweet about Africa until he is concerned about the plight of white people living there. Notice his emphasis on white people, as if even to be concerned about the plight of white people in Africa is somehow racist. So here's the clip of Tucker Carlson I said I was going to show you, where he actually has Julius Malema on there. He's the head of the third largest political party in South Africa, and his rhetoric is very violent, openly calling for the killing of whites. Here it is.
Julius Malema is the leader of the country's third largest political party. He's one of South Africa's most famous figures. Here's what he said 2 years ago about murdering people on the basis of their skin color. Watch this.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we've not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies.
Here's Malema just a few months ago.
When you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain. We are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness.
Malema, by the way, is not a fringe figure in South African politics. He's a pivotal figure.
So here's MSNBC's take on the Trump tweet. Pretty much says the same thing as CNN. She sounds a little nervous, though. She seems a little tentative about saying some of these things. I wonder if she really believes it herself.
Amid all that's going on, President Trump has decided to wade into South African race politics. While evidently watching cable news last night, the president tweeted at one network, quote, "I've asked Secretary of State Pompeo to closely study the South Africa land and farm seizures and expropriations and the large-scale killing of farmers. South African government is now seizing land from white farmers." South Africa is currently considering a plan to allow land seizures without compensation as a way to address old apartheid policy.
Okay, now, as promised, I'm going to show you some clips from some people in South Africa and from a journalist who went there to interview some people. The first one is Lauren Southern interviewing one of the Blood Sisters. Blood Sisters are people employed to clean up after these crime scenes. Be warned, though, there are some graphic images in here and some graphic descriptions, so it's pretty awful.
During my investigation into South Africa's farm murders, I've heard plenty of stories, but there is one woman in particular who has seen it all. Eileen de Jager is one of the famous Blood Sisters, a pair of crime scene cleaners who have dealt with the aftermath of more farm murders than anyone else. I wanted to find out if some of the more gruesome stories I've heard about could even possibly be true, and what the Blood Sister herself thought of the crime wave sweeping South Africa.
You never get used to cleaning up crime scenes, especially farm murders. You don't get used to it. The torture that we find have been done on these farm murders are unbelievable. We found pieces of nails being pulled out. We found hands being removed from bodies. We found people raped, brutally murdered, babies, children, the farmers trying to protect their families, and there's just no stopping. The farm murders are brutal. Rolene and I went to this farm murder scene in the northwest, and we came upon this beautiful white house, and everywhere you looked was blood splatter. Since from where you walked in, there was blood against the curtains, the walls, the paintings, the floor, and you could see where two babies were murdered in the bathroom. So they were definitely attacked while giving the babies a bath. One of them actually survived and crawled all the way from the bathroom. He was about 2 years old. Crawled all the way from the bathroom to the main bedroom where the mom was murdered. She was dragged to the bedroom, raped and killed, and then the one baby was murdered in the bath and the other one got out and crawled. and he died there by his side. That was a very terrible one. Another one that stays with me is in Johannesburg, just outside Johannesburg. We had a farm murder where 5 people came in. It was arranged by their domestic worker, and they drowned the 12-year-old boy in boiling hot water. So we had to remove the skin from the bath as it was peeling off him in the hot water. That was a terrible scene.
What's particularly bizarre about the crime in South Africa towards white farmers is much of it is played off as simply robberies gone wrong. But one has to wonder how you can accidentally torture an entire family, accidentally cut someone's eyes out, or accidentally rape them for days. The crimes in this country seem to take on a far more wicked nature than those in most of the world.
It's not about robbing or stealing. It's been classified, especially on the crime stats as well, that it's attacks or robberies, burglaries. But because there is no statistic for farm murders currently in South Africa, the brutality of the farm murders in South Africa is undescribable. The things that you see on farm murders, the torture, the time it took to do the killings, the brutality and the ongoing torture is unbelievable. People's eyes are being removed, parts of their bodies, limbs being raped with objects, not even by themselves. I think if you look at the worst movies ever made, it's not really a patch against what is really going on there.
I wanted to find out what could motivate such gruesome attacks, but given their sensitive work with the South African police, a state-controlled force, Eileen made it clear she wasn't able to answer certain questions.
90% of the increase we found is due to unemployment, racial discrimination, and there's no hope. If you don't start your own business in South Africa, where are you going to work? There's no work.
Racial discrimination against who, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I have to be careful. Yeah,
because
I have to be a little bit careful.
We work very closely with government. Racial discrimination against...
No, it's okay.
We have to be so careful.
Even if she couldn't comment on this, with the government nearly ignoring the issue altogether, and certainly not releasing research on it, one can only speculate on motives. But one thing that is becoming certain is that things are getting worse.
They started weekly. We would get one call a week to come and assist at either farm attack or farm murder. Now it's daily. It's definitely daily. It's increased unbelievably.
Hearing these stories from the Blood Sisters is not an easy thing to do. Believe me, I have these just horrific, evil images that they described burned into my memory. But when the South African government refused to publicly discuss this problem and potential solutions to it, and even seem willfully ignorant of it, just playing it off as simple burglaries, we have to do the job that the government and the mainstream media won't, and talk about this issue now, because otherwise we are going to be hearing a lot more of these dreadful tales.
Okay, and the final clip here is from a guy named William Petzer, who lives in South Africa. He's active in the AfriForum site, and he's personally experienced some of these attacks. His uncle and aunt were brutally shot by those who are doing these farm murders, and he documents quite a bit of it. And he's introducing a book here called Kill the Boer, B-O-E-R, and it's by a guy named Ernst Roets, E-R-N-S-T-R-O-E-T-S. He goes over a couple of examples in the book where it conclusively shows that the South African government is not only allowing and condoning, but is actually complicit in these farm murders.
In South Africa, there are a few facts that we all sort of know, but nowhere has it been documented with references and it being made into an academic document. That has changed with this book that was written by my friend called Kill the Boer, and then underneath it says Government Complicity in South Africa's Brutal Farm Murders. I'm going to start with the thing that really touched me the deepest, and that is two things that has been pointed out inside this book. The first one is a gang leader from Cape Town who was in jail for farm murders, who has confessed that he got his orders to kill the farmers from Julius Malema himself. The other one is an ANC member who also killed people, who then later confessed to Ernst and AfriForum that he killed them because he got the orders directly from Luthuli House, which is the ANC's headquarters. Now, these are very, very, very serious allegations, but what really solidifies the argument of the government's complicity in farm murders for me is the fact that none of these has been investigated. Both were thrown under the rug. I was talking to Ernst about this specific point in an interview at the Kill the Boer book launch.
Yes, so there was an audio clip that was played on Carte Blanche, the current affairs show, more than a year ago, where a general of the 28 prison gang said, he was recorded having said that Julius Malema came to speak to them in prison, and he spoke to them about farm murders, and he asked them when he comes out, if they need weapons to kill farmers, they can come to him. And that was recorded and it was aired on Carte Blanche, and there's been no investigation into that. It's an extremely serious allegation, and it hasn't even been investigated. And then also, I spoke during the course of writing this book. I was contacted by someone from prison who said to me he needs to speak to me urgently. He has information that he wants to share with me. I went to see him. He said to me that he has committed a farm murder, and he said that he was a member of Mkhonto Isizwe, which is of course the military wing of the ANC, and he said that the ANC told him to murder that farmer, and when he did so and when he was caught, they pretended like they didn't know who he was. The book is about how and why the South African government should be regarded as complicit, and there are a variety of reasons for that. As a matter of fact, there are 10 different reasons which I highlight in the book. One of them is, for example, the fact that in 2007, according to government statistics, there was a 25% increase in farm attacks, and the government's response to this is we're not going to release any more statistics about this.
One thing that I want to point out in this video is that black on white killings are 5,750% higher than white on black killings. Yet, the media are 11 times more likely to report on a white on black incident than they are to report on a black on white incident. The last point that I want to get to is one that I have personal experience with. Many people in the media claim that these attacks are not racial, or in most cases not racial. To debunk that myth, I have a personal story to tell. This story isn't in the book because it happened many years ago when I was still a high school boy. My great uncle and aunt were tortured to death, and in the blood the attacker wrote 666 white devils on the walls of the house after he tortured them to death. Yet, the attack was not classified as a racial farm attack. Another event that was talked about in the book is one where the attackers in the farm attack yelled, "Die, die, white men, viva Julius Malema," while they were torturing the farmer to death. Yet, in the official statistics, this was also not a racial attack, or an attack with a racial motive. It's very easy to prove that the official statistics are skewed to hide the racial components of these attacks.
Okay, thanks for watching. Shows quite a bit of a big disconnect between what the mainstream media is saying and what's really happening, as is true of a lot of the news today. I invite you to check out some of the links in the description below, especially Lauren Southern's excellent documentary called Farmlands. Till next time, be well.